Support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Avenelli coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Avenelli spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast with Johnny, Dana and Tom. We're the Boro podcast that gives you all of your Boro match day chatter in a podcast. And well, a 3-0 defeat to Coventry City. Boro dropped to 10th in the championship table. 3 points off the playoff places. And guys, as always, I'll ask you for your one key takeout. Dana, would you like to go first?
Yeah, my key takeout this week is that I can't trust this Middlesbrough team. I would love nothing more than to trust them. But in truth, I think if you listen to our last few podcasts, you'll probably listen to our one key takeouts, and 1 week will be pretty positive and then the next week will be pretty critical. And that's kind of what we're receiving from Middlesbrough right now. It's inconsistency. And I genuinely thought at half time against Norwich, I was thinking, have we clicked? Because I saw one hell of a half, a scintillating half of football in which we were very, very good. And obviously before that, a win against Sheffield United in which the performance was good. And then we follow it up with the inevitable, you have to say, defeat against Coventry. So what Boro do is they tease us. They make us think that they've turned a corner, that we're cooking on gas, that we have clicked. And then you'll get a result like yesterday that basically crashes you back down to earth with quite the thud. And it's getting on my wick, to be honest. I don't like turbulence. And I feel like that inconsistency within Boro's results is turbulence. I just wish that we could have that consistency where we're not only playing well, but we're getting the results too. That's just not happening. And it's becoming pretty tiresome. And I'm speaking very pessimistic, maybe, bit doom and gloom right now. I wouldn't be surprised if the next podcast I'm glowing about Boro. That's just how this season has gone, and it's doing my head in, to be honest. I left pretty early yesterday because I couldn't be arsed to stomach the celebrations from Coventry fans again against us. I guess that's how Brentford fans felt against us all those years ago. I just wish that this season could properly kick into gear now. I've seen too much inconsistency and it's just become really, really tiresome.
And Tom, I'm assuming you're going to add to this as well around the frustrations and inconsistency.
Yeah, I mean, Dana was talking there about feeling pessimistic and how that's coming across, and man's going to be even more pessimistic. This is making me hate going to the games and hate football. I don't want anything to do with football until next Saturday. I'm probably not going to watch the game on Tuesday. I'm going to go watch fireworks instead. And you know what? The worst part is we probably will win on Tuesday. And then Carrick will come out afterwards and be like, "Oh, well, you know what? It's after this game and after Sheffield United, everyone was on top of the world, and we must be doing something right." I'm like, "Well, no, you're not, because you keep following those wins up with losses, and there's no consistency at all. You can keep talking about ironing out the mistakes and stuff, but something's got to give. And if you want to achieve anything this season, you need to sort this out quickly, because it is fast becoming tiresome." I left on the 78th minute yesterday before the third goal went in. As with Dana, I couldn't stomach it again. And this isn't anything against Coventry in particular, but you look at the amount of just average teams that have come to the Riverside this season and beat us, and you hear them celebrating at the end, and it's just kind of like, this is our home ground, and we are letting teams get away with this. I mean, don't get me wrong, it wasn't us letting them away fully yesterday. I will say the referee had a big part in ruining the game as well, but it's really becoming tiring, and I just can't be asked anymore. So there's potential that we go 1 or 2-0 down against Luton next week, and I'll just be like, right, I'm off. Like, I'll have to read up on the report for the podcast because I can't be arsed being there.
Can I just add on the back of that as well? You talk about the average teams that have basically taken points off us this season. Excluding the Stoke game in the Cup, I don't think there's been a game this season in which Boro have been by far and wide undisputedly outplayed. And that's the frustrating thing. It's that we play pretty decently on the whole, but we just are not effective in getting results. And that's incredibly infuriating. And I also have a question. Johnny, did you stay until the final whistle yesterday? Because if you did, you were the only one from the Boro Breakdown crew that did.
Well, as a true Boro supporter, since you're both fake fans now for leaving early, I did stay until the 90th minute. One, just to make sure I've seen everything that I need to see, and two, I mean, me and my dad get the bus to a game, so we go together. So the bus doesn't leave after the match, so I'm kind of stuck at this point. But maybe
I
I
was
need to
about to praise you for your passion there, mate. But no, if the bus schedule's
if the bus schedule's there, yeah. Well, you know what? Next time we're driving with my dad and kill a 10-year tradition and just drive and leave. But to be fair, I do envy people sometimes. I'm like, I wish I could leave early, sometimes. But I enjoy going. So and staying to the end, unfortunately. But in terms of my key takeout, I did say on our last point, like I was surprised a little bit by the confidence of Boro fans coming into the game against Coventry. Definitely felt like I even said that, to quote Jonathan Woodgate, the table was lying in the false position. So it's very typical that they clicked at that point. But I thought Coventry were the better team yesterday, deserving the 3 points. I mean, they came in with confidence, and Boro shot themselves in the foot before they could even get a foot in the game. And they were deserving of the 3 points. But it's like, we're the greatest team in the world when we win, and we're the shittest team in the world when we get beaten, sack the manager, sack the board, and all that kind of stuff. But that's the emotional side of football completely. But yeah, I just thought we weren't good enough yesterday, to be honest. From start to finish, just shot ourselves in the foot. And the highlight of my day really was the chips and chicken curry I got from the van. I got there was no curry sauce this week, so I got a chicken curry instead. But I tell you what, superb, 10 out of 10.
Sorry, I thought you were going to say the highlight of your day was that woman headbutting the turnstile.
I mean, for me, it's not really that quite nice seeing someone headbutt a turnstile, Dana, to be honest. I mean, I don't know how you do it, but it was there. Yeah, just took a bit too long to tap and walk in, and
she showed a bit of passion. That's what we need on the pitch. People headbutting things. That's why we lost yesterday, because no one showed the passion to headbutt someone. Anyway,
I want you to look like Terry Butcher when he's got that bandage in his blood, blood all over his shirt every week. Anyway, we'll chat about the Coventry game then in more detail now. And 3-0, man sent off, frustrations. The crowd was empty. The traffic horn was dead, which was brilliant for me. Since I stayed till 90th minute, 'cause I'm a true fan. But Tom, what was your overarching assessment of the game yesterday?
I thought it was a game that was ruined by a referee wanting to be the centre of attention, to be honest. I did think, and you just said there, Coventry were deserving of the 3 points. There were, and there were people on the BBC Tees morning afterwards who were saying, that first 15 minutes they were on top. I will agree with that, they were. However, we have seen it in other games this season where other teams will start quick, Boro will weather the storm, and then we'll slowly grow into the game. Sheffield United's one that comes to mind there. So it wasn't, at that point, I wasn't just like, oh, we're getting outplayed here or anything like that. It's just kind of like, yeah, Coventry are having the better at the moment, but we can get back into this and we can start to grab hold of this game and scream in its face passionately. But so that was happening. And then you get the first Hayden Hackney yellow, which yes, I can understand why that was a yellow. It was a tactical foul. He was covering for his own mistake there. The second one, I do not agree with at all. And I think this was one of the first set of decisions from this referee where there was a guy behind me who was like, I heard him say, like, it looks like the referee's been paid off. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I can understand this because he's so like, it's either that or he's just bad. Like, I'm playing football tonight over at Soccer Sensations at 6:30. If he turns up, I mean, firstly, I'd be wondering why a referee's like taking part in 8 aside. But I'd just be like, right, I'll go home because, you know, he just was not good at his job. And neither was the linesman in front of the East Stand either. The second yellow card for me, because it happened right in front of me, I saw the touch on the ball. Forget about the follow through, because if you're going to go on the follow through and say, oh, it was reckless and there was studs up, surely that's a straight red. I'm not complaining that we've only lost Hackney for 1 game rather than 3, but it wasn't like he got the ball beforehand. Are you just is he supposed to just kind of like do nothing and let the Coventry player take the ball? No, and he got the ball for me, and then from there it kind of spiraled. I think the referee lost control of that game within the first 20 minutes. I think he gave a lot of yellow cards to Coventry players because he felt bad, really. I think he was trying to kind of undo that. But then there was another example of a Coventry player who was already on a yellow card, and then he gets away with a warning. I'm just kind of like, right, you've already set the precedent in the first half that you can't get away with anything. Where's this red card? And it just kind of goes on like that. There was actually a point in the second half. I don't know who it was that had been fouled. I can only really vividly remember the aftermath of this. Our players were, not crowding the referee, but kind of saying, look, where's the card for this? And he ran away and hid behind a Coventry player. And like didn't even dare answer them back. And I'm just like, what on earth are you doing? There were players from both sides who were having to go at the linesman because he was making some shocking decisions as well. And honestly, I just think if that officiating team gets demoted to Billingham Town's level, I still think that's harsh on Billingham Town next week. They shouldn't be anywhere near the game of football.
So the key take out there is that you're really happy with the referee's performance. Is that what you're trying to say?
That was it, Johnny.
Yeah, just to make sure I was listening intently there. On the red card, I think it is. I think it's reckless. I think
I agree.
It's a bad touch, and then you having to jump in. And yes, he does get the ball, but I don't think he's in control there, which I think is the reason why you probably get put in a position when you're in. Obviously, when you do referee, you get told you have to manage the game obviously effectively. The first one's a yellow. I think it's just stupid. That's on Hackney. Like, he's gave the ball away. Wasteful. You give a card for that naturally. Lesser leagues, junior football, you're like, okay, I'll just let that slide. It's a foul. We'll carry on about it. But then obviously when you're at that level, letter of the law, yellow card. And then the second one, it's a poor touch from him. Really, he turns a bit too heavy, and then it gives Asante that just that split second of a chance that he might nick it, but he knows he'll probably get the foul if he's not perfect. He gets a touch, but it's not enough for me. I think he has to get the full ball and really win it on, just take him out with the ball. But unfortunately, the ball kind of moves away from it, and then his foot goes on even just glimpses his ankle. But given that his angle that he's at, unfortunately, I think he's kind of in a bad place there where it could be an orange in terms of like do you know what I mean? Of like it's a yellow, but then it's like obviously it's a yellow and a red. But I don't think it's a warning. I think it's a yellow.
I think he was daft to give the referee a decision at that point because I think it was clear within the first 15 minutes that this ref didn't know what he was doing. But that, for me, he does get the ball first. It does ricochet off the Coventry player and off in a different direction. But for me, he has got the ball there. So there is a good second or two before the follow through where the Coventry player continues on into that path. It was avoidable. they've both got to go for it. And for me, the worst tackle out that was probably deserving of a yellow was probably a couple of minutes after that, when Howson goes flying into a 50-50 with a Coventry player. That was out of control from both of them. And, on that logic, you can argue that's a yellow card for both of them as well. I just, like I say, it was daft of him to give the referee that decision to make. And I think as a young player, that's something you've got to learn from. But I don't think the referee got that right at all. And it was a pattern throughout the game.
I just thought it was stupid from Hackney. And it was the perfect conclusion for what was an absolute nightmare 20 minutes or so, in which nothing was really going right for him. And I like Hackney. It was just a really bad afternoon. And I just think it was a very silly thing to do. I think both of them were yellow cards. I think the referee got it spot on. At the time, I thought that's a second yellow. I've seen the replay. I still think it's a second yellow. But it's the fact that he tries to both of his yellow cards are him trying to undo his own mistake, because he loses the ball for the first one, as you said, Tom, and then the second one, it's a horrendous touch, and that kind of just sums up his afternoon, unfortunately. And people will say, and you spoke about it there, Tom, that before that Boro weren't great, and I agree with that. That is, I think, an accurate perspective. But that red card, excuse me, that red card basically puts the 3 points in Coventry's part, in the palm of Coventry's hand. And it's one of those big decisions, again, big moments that Boro are on the wrong end of. So I think that does change the skew of the game completely, because I think Boro would have probably grown into the game if that wasn't the case. But yeah, it's just it's stupid, and it's not really a surprise, because I think we've got a group of players that make some really silly decisions on the football pitch.
Yeah, and look, when those decisions go your way, you're down to 10 men. I think Coventry, they take advantage of that position really, and they use the wings really well in the game yesterday. They were trying to stretch Boro, similarly what you've seen against Sheffield United, really, where you've got wingers really hogging the touchline, trying to get that big switch, trying to move a team from side to side, play with good tempo. And when you are down a man for Boro, you've got to be really compact in that moment and just try and pick your battles in terms of when to go on press and when not to press. And there was times where you've seen it where obviously I think there's a time where McGree ran for it, and really it was bad ball from Houseman because he turned and Jones didn't make the run, but he knocks it into a corner. And then it's like people are like, should we press? Should we not press? And then Boro out of position and they play through the press, and then they're away again. So there's a couple of things where you're thinking, right, Boro could be a lot more smarter in those moments, but if not, then it's a bit of a difficult place to be in. But Michael Carrick did make a change when Hackney did get sent off and brought on Johnny Howson for Finn Zaz. Just keen to hear everyone's thoughts on whether it was the right decision or not.
I didn't really have too much of an opinion on Howson coming on, although I did think later on in the game, I kind of had a Johnny Bullock lens, and I was like, I just reckon Johnny would have put Barlasser on, and I don't know if you would have necessarily done that. But to be honest, my thought was take Jones off, because I'm not going to lie, it's kind of like playing 10 men anyways with Jones at the moment. I think his form is very, very poor. But Azaz, I guess, was the most sacrificable one, because to be honest, when you've got Riley McGree roaming into central areas, if you take a central player out in Finn Azaz, given that you're a man down, it's not so big of a numerical hit in terms of the positions that players take up as it would be if you take Jones off. So I can see why Carrick kept Jones on, because at least you've got somebody out wide, but still his performance wasn't the greatest, and he didn't really provide an outlet that we kind of needed. I think with Jones, he's better as a wing back, and I did think that during the game. But yeah, the substitution, it forces Carrick's hand. I don't really have many arguments for or against it, but my first thought was keep Azaz on, take Jones off.
Yeah, and look, for me at the time, I didn't say put Barlasser on at all, to be honest. So yeah. But at the time, I was thinking Howson probably is the right sub for how I felt at that moment, because I was like, Boro losing it a little bit in central areas. How comfortable am I with Azaz and McGree with Aidan Morris in midfield? Because it's still very attacking. So I thought, I might just give it a bit of stability, and then you've still got an out-and-out option with Jones on the right. However, I agree with you, Dan. I thought Jones was poor yesterday. So I think a different option, Don, what you could have done in that moment was you go to a back three or a back five, and then you would probably bring on Dijksteel for Jones, bring in Ayling a little bit more. So you do have quite a solid back three. You can use Borges and Dijksteel as your wing players to get up the pitch. And then if you wanted to keep Azaz and McGree on, you've still got a base there with Aidan Morrison. You could probably put McGree in more of a central position. Then you've still got that connection there between the centre forward and the midfield. The only downside I would say of bringing Howson on for that moment is just that you did lose that connection to Conway. He did feel a bit stranded, and all their players had to do in the midfield was just move from side to side, block the passing lanes, and it becomes really difficult. And I thought we missed Finazaz when he got took off yesterday, and it just shows for me that he does pick up really good positions and get to good areas, because there was a pass about 5 or 6, 7 minutes in where it was probably Boro's first intent of the game, where he picks it up and plays a lovely whip ball around the back of the defender. It looks like we were in, and it was like, well, I would have liked to see that more of that creativity because we didn't really have it. Ballas would have probably give you that option, but again, it's like not the right sub to make at that time. So for me, yeah, in that moment, I thought Howson could be the shout because it just gives you a bit more stability in midfield. However, like on reflection, I thought maybe we could have went to a back three a lot more sooner. You could have brought Dijksteel on and play with those central areas, or if you wanted to even go for it at that point, go Conway, Elaf, try and press the players. They press the centre backs a little bit more, make it a really difficult game. You are playing really aggressively there, but it's like when I was saying to my point earlier, you need to know when to press and when not to press. Keep a really tight shape about you, know when to move side to side. And Howson is probably more of like a beneficiary in that front because he's used to that system of trying to keep things tight together. But what I would say though, and you guys left at this point, we moved. We did move to a back five when we did.
Oh, I
move to
saw
a back
that.
five. Yeah. So
I saw that. Yeah.
And Howson moved to a centre back, and that was the worst decision we could have possibly made. And I think that highlighted that this is probably Howson's last season, to be honest. And look, if you don't like that opinion, I think you need to probably accept that Howson is definitely on the back nine, or at least finished for this season. I can't see him getting another contract with us anymore. He is a fan favorite in some aspects, but the brutal reality is I think he's done now. There was some moments in the game where I thought he was poor, like the whole team were, but when he got put centre back and you had a bit of pace around him, it looked all I see a little bit, unfortunately. But that's just one of those things. He had to do a job in that moment. It didn't really work, but I do think that that's last season for Howson, unfortunately. But Tom, just back to that original point in terms of the sub itself. As for Howson, were you relatively happy with the decision? I think it was the right one.
I wasn't, and I thought it was really interesting, like listening to what you both would have done, because in hindsight, my change that I wanted at that point was probably very attacking. I wanted Jones off and put Elaf on, and for me, that would have meant a midfield three of Morris, McGree, and Azaz, which is attacking anyway. Yes, we're sacrificing the width, but what you've got with Conway and Laff is two strikers who will do a lot of running. There's a lot of effort, a lot of pressing, like Tunchai levels of effort and pressing at times, and you can kind of get the width that way. You can get either of those two picking it up on the wings. And that's maybe when you push one of the midfielders up or two of the midfielders up as well and try and nick something. I think at that point, it did make it a lot more difficult for us to get anything out of the game. And personally, because we went a goal down close to half-time, I'd have probably made the more attacking change at half-time, because at that point, you've got nothing to lose. But yesterday was one of the occasions where I was really kind of joining in with what we've seen recently, with a lot of people questioning the timing of the substitutions from Carrick. I was just kind of like, we've got nothing to lose at this point. You may as well go for this and try and get something back. I can understand why we've made the change that we did, but what I didn't enjoy yesterday was, I mean, as Dana said, and I hate saying it because it's harsh on the player, but with Jones yesterday, it was like playing with 10 men at times. There were points on that right hand side where things weren't working cohesively as they have done in recent weeks with Ben Doak there. It seemed like we were making headway up the pitch on the right hand side. We'd turn to the right, and Jones was about 5 or 10 yards behind play, and he was wanting the ball to feet in a standing start to try and take people on, and then ultimately not really taking people on. So, yeah, that I think we could all kind of see that performance coming after he ran it out of play in the first 2 minutes. But yeah, for me, I'd have made that change and took Jones off after the red card, and tried a different route.
Can I just say, off the back of the discussion about the substitutions, I just want to spotlight Aidan Morris because he lost his midfield partner in Hayden Hackney, and the two of them have been performing really well in tandem. I think they complement each other's game very well. But we saw Aidan Morris on his own really trying to bring Boro's performance level up. And I think you saw especially his energy levels yesterday. He was effectively playing the role of two midfielders, I think. And I just really appreciated his determination. And it wasn't just that, it wasn't just his energy. I think it was actually his performance as well. He's very good at distributing the ball from deep and just connecting the play from midfield. And he wasn't doing that necessarily with Hackney because he wasn't there, but he was doing it with Housen and he was doing it with Ayling as well when Ayling was on. So I really like Aidan Morris and I just really appreciated his effort yesterday. I bet the bloke was absolutely knackered, but he's a Duracell battery, isn't he, Morris? And that's a very beneficial trait to have, I think, especially in the Championship.
Yeah, I thought Morris was the best player on the pitch yesterday. I really did. And you can add a lot of context and layers to that his performance, to be honest. But he was brilliant. Everything that he did was fantastic. His interceptions, his short passing, his ability to try and break up the play and get Boro moving was really, really good, to be honest. But when Boro do go down to 10 men, Coventry do score from a great ball in the box and they head home and go ahead, and that changed the game state of the match as well. Do you think, one, don't think could be avoided, but two, like, what's your overall thoughts on the performance as we did go down to 10 men as well?
Yeah, I think it was inevitable that they'd end up scoring. I mean, the way that we actually do concede, I think it is avoidable because you can see when the ball comes into the box, Matt Clark steps up. And as he steps up, Bobby Thomas just roams into that space that he's left and he gets a pretty uncontested header. So that's really disappointing. There's nothing that Dieng can do about it because I know Dieng's come under quite a bit of criticism recently, but that's kind of the fault of Matt Clark. I don't know whether it's necessarily rustiness or just a general poor moment from him, but yeah, he steps up, no one follows him, and then Bobby Thomas has that uncontested header. I will say, after half time, I think Boro started pretty well after the break, but the game was just littered with nearly moments where I was thinking, Christ alive, we are so frustrating to watch. There were balls that were going into the box that were of such poor quality, both from set pieces and in open play. When we had the ball in the half space, Ayling, for example, Morris might have also tried to put a ball into the box. That might be McGree, I can't remember. But they tried to lift the ball into the box and it was crossed with such a lack of height and pace that you couldn't do anything with it. It barely reached the box. And I'm thinking, right, we're basically scrapping at this point. We're trying to get back into the game. Credit to Boro for responding after halftime because I do think their performance was decent. But then I'm looking at set pieces as a potential avenue. And the one thing that I noticed that I do want to praise Coventry for is their set pieces were pretty decent. They had a routine, one of the offside goals. It was very well crafted. also credit to Boro for holding their line there and, creating that offside scenario. But God, I'd just love for us to have those set pieces that I know they're not particularly fruitful avenues of scoring goals. They're kind of overrated, I guess, in that way. But if you just have that extra little bit of goal scoring threat from those set pieces, then it might just get you back into the game yesterday. But those Neely moments from a Neely team, it's so frustrating. And there was a ball that Riley McGree put into the box on the floor in the second half. No one was there to put the ball into the back of the net because it was a very strong cross. It had all the pace on it. It just needed somebody to just turn it home, just glance a little foot at it and direct it goal bound, and no one was there. So yeah, we could have actually got ourselves back into the game, but because we were so disconnected, you had Tommy Conway, who was obviously our focal point, working wide right or wide left. It left us basically no real option up front. So yeah, it was really frustrating. And it is one of those games where I just wonder how that would have transpired if Hackney would have stayed on the pitch, because shock horror, we lose to Coventry again, and it's another defeat in which we haven't actually scored past them. But this one doesn't seem like it came about because of any great craft from Matt Robbins. Although I will say they were good before the red card, but it wasn't a coaching masterclass from him like we've seen previously, or even half of that. It just felt like Boro again wrote their own script, essentially, and wrote their own script to a defeat. So massively frustrating and pretty, as I said at the top of the show, pretty tiresome as well. Because bloody hell, why can't we beat Coventry? What is going on? I can't stand them. I don't want us to play them ever again. Ever again.
Well, unfortunately, Boro do go to them on the final day of the season. So hopefully nothing is
great.
wrong with it. So, is what it is. But there's a player that you both alluded to, and it was Isaiah Jones and him coming in for Ben Doak yesterday. Did it highlight at all how much of a miss Ben Doak actually was yesterday? Because you've both said Jones was really poor. Therefore, if Ben Doak was playing, do you think that things could have been better? So, Dana, what do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I think it would have been better because Ben Doak is in better form. And I think he would have provided a better, more potent, more dangerous test for their left wing back. So Carrick said after the game it was more managing his minutes because it's a bit of a fatigue problem. It has to be mentioned that prior to coming to Middlesbrough, Ben Doak was out for a number of months with a pretty significant injury, and he's a young lad. People will say, "Oh, he's a young lad; he's as fit as a fiddle," but there's so many examples of footballers that have racked up too many minutes and have broken. Dele Alli probably the biggest example of that. Now, I'm not saying that Ben Doak playing minutes for Middlesbrough will break him, but I can understand the perspective of managing him. It's just unfortunate. I wish we weren't in a situation where we have to manage the minutes of the likes of Ben Doak and Riley McGree, who are clearly very influential players. But I do think that game would have been different. We've got an outlet wide right who is a genuine threat. I mean, he basically created the goal that Tommy Conway scored himself against Norwich. I mean, obviously props to Dicedale for the nutmeg pass, but he carries the ball so well and he's such a threat. Even at his most ineffective, he's still effective. So I looked at the team and I thought, we're already at a bit of a disadvantage there, which is basically because there's no Ben Doak in the team. It isn't actually specifically to do with Jones. It's just the fact that there's no Ben Doak there. That's a really big loss.
I agree. But I'll continue the Ben Doak chatter, but only in the form of podcast questions. Yes, podcast questions. Every week you get the chance to ask us a question via Twitter, @Boro_breakdown, or email theborebreakdown@hotmail.com. And the first question is from Chris, and just continuing with the Doak chatter as well. Chris asks, how good a team actually are we? Because it seems at the minute, if Doak and McGree aren't both in the lineup, we're a mid-table team at best. I kind of want to get everyone's views on this. So, Tom, What's your thoughts? If Dork and McGree aren't both in the lineup, are we a mid-table team?
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but I would say we're a better team than we've shown. I think annoyingly we'll probably click further down the season as we did last year. I think going into this season, after the end of last season, expectations were high based on what we'd managed to kind of build. And I still think that potential's there. But as Dana said earlier, we've got a young team, filled with people who are making daft decisions. And it's stuff that, although Carrick can't legislate for it, he probably could do a better job as well in terms of in-game management to maybe help those players who aren't making great decisions. So I still think there's a lot more to come from us. I don't think, quality-wise that we are a mid-table team. I think we are higher, but we need more. I mean, it's every week now. We need more consistency, and that has to happen across the board. It has to happen from the players not making stupid decisions, and it has to happen from the coach and staff helping those players as well.
Maybe our consistency is the fact that we are inconsistent. Maybe
Maybe.
maybe that's kind of where we're at. Tom, I agree with you though on we're much better than a mid-table team at best. I think we're a lot better than what people make out. And I also think that, Middlesbrough historically, mid-table championship club probably at best. And we forget that we've been here for 14 seasons now out of the last 15 years. Only 4 of those times we've been in the promotion places or in the playoffs. So for the most part, we probably shouldn't be really in and around it. But for right now and where Middlesbrough are at as a team, there's some football that I've seen from Michael Carrick's team where I think that is arguably the best 2 or 3 teams in the division by some distance. And then I see sometimes from the team where it's probably the worst in the division in terms of individual mistakes and giving games away. So you can say balanced out to mid-table team, but in terms of quality and what we bring, I think we are a lot better than what people saying we are right now. It's just that very emotional response of, well, we're crap, Carrick's future needs to be discussed. We need to sack Kieran Scott. We need to sack all the players. Bin the seats in the Riverside. We'll go back to Ayson Park, and it's low. You could go to any different extreme you want with that, but I think the overarching message I want to say is that we're a fairly good footballing team, and I think that top 6 would, and if we got there, would be very, very well deserving come the end of the season. But at the moment in time, we're not at that level just yet. But Dana, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's no doubting the efficiency of McGree, especially, and Ben Doak right now. But I understand why there's a focus on those 2 players. I think Chris was talking about their records and Boro winning, that Boro's win percentage with those in the team. But I do think we've also got some really good players elsewhere in the pitch. I mean, our depth at centre back is very good. It's probably the best part of the squad, I would say. Morris and Hackney together are actually really good. And I think come the end of the season, we will look at these 2 as one of the best midfield partnerships in the league, in my opinion. Azaz is a good player. Conway is a good player. I think Lath, despite his problems this season, sort of slow at start, he's a good player. What I have always thought, and it's hard for me to kind of verbalize, is I think people have overrated Boro's general squad, because I'm looking at certain players like Bergzorg, for example. Sorry to kind of flag him, but I'm like, eh. And I think it's better than last season, but I still don't think it's as good as people are making it out to be. The starting 11, good, really good. But the depth-wise, you take McGree out of the team, the depth isn't quite there. You take Ben Doak out of the team, the quality of depth isn't quite there. You take Azaz out of the team, the quality of depth isn't quite there. Although I do like Gilbert. I kind of forgot that he existed, to be honest, such as his injury. But like left back, the quality, even in the starting 11, I still think the jury's out about Neto Borges. Or I will say, we didn't mention it after Sheffield United game. I thought he was good against the Blades. So it's like certain positions I'm looking at and I'm like, it's not as good as people are thinking it is, and that's my opinion. It might be controversial, but I've seen people say that this squad is like top 2 worthy. I don't think it is, but I guess that's a different conversation.
I don't think it's the same level of what it was under Kroenke. I don't think it's the same level. I think when you look at that team that got promoted, if Albert Adoma's not performing, you have Stuart Downing. If Downing's not performing, you've got Stuani. You know, if Kike is not playing very well, you've got Jordan
Love Kike.
Rhodes. You've got David Nugent. You've got Gaston Ramirez, who was well above the level of what he should have been. And then your fringe players, you've got like bloody. I'm trying to think.
Forshaw was
never used to play, but
Forshaw was good.
Great player to bring into the squad. So we had a lot of very, very good players and in real strong depth as well. This group, I think we've got a great 11, great 14 players, but it's 15, 16, 17, 18 where
it's
I
more
just think
potential for me.
Yeah.
It's more potential than actual quality right now. For me, a top 2 team, and I may be etching into a conversation that's barely been had here, but a top 2 team has players that have kind of been there and done it, but also still have a lot of quality to give in this league. I think of like Southampton last season signing Joe Rothwell, for example, like probably not the poster boy kind of example there, but I can't think of any others. Like when Kiefer Moore gets passed around, like past the parcel, it's kind of those players that, okay, he's maybe not doing so well at Sheffield United at the moment, but those tried and tested championship players that aren't has-beens, they're not cast aside as like kind of they've been there and done it and they can't do it again. They're more been there, done it, and can do it and are still doing it. So I look at our team and I think we've got more potential, like the Micah Hamiltons of the team, for example. That's potential. And I think people maybe get a little bit too into like that potential and the kind of hype and what they could be. But right now, I think it's untapped potential that we have with certain players in certain positions. So yeah, so I do think our squad's maybe a little bit overrated in terms of the quality in the present.
Do you think maybe in like a year's time we could be discussing it as like, oh yeah, these players are those types of players? Like Hamilton might come on really well in like a year's time, and then next year we're doing a pod and be like, right, now we've got a top 2 squad because these players have actually come on, but at the moment they haven't actually done that much. It is just potential and hype.
Yeah, if they stay, Tom. We don't flog them to Aston Villa and then they become a bloody Champions League player like Rodgers.
Well, one question we do have is from Kyle, and they ask, if the season ends without a playoff push, will there be issues retaining Morris and Hackney next summer? Tom, what do you think?
I think there would be for Hackney. Morris, maybe we might get the benefit of this being his first season in English football, although he is showing a massive amount of ability so far. Hackney, he's been linked to other clubs for the last 2 or 3 years. I think if we don't go up, this might be the year that we do lose him, and he'll probably end up going somewhere like Spurs or something like that. Hopefully not Man United, because he'll ruin his career. But he'll probably end up at Spurs with Jed Spence or something. I think, that's the danger of not going up this year.
Yeah, and I agree with that as well, Tom. I think Hackney's probably in this season now where he probably will move on. He's kind of in that Tavi era a little bit where we have to kind of let him go and see him probably fly in the Premier League. So I think he's good enough. I think that Aidan Morris is good enough for the Premier League as well. We've got some really good players in this group where they can probably make that step up, and it's just not fleshed out to where we want it to be. But I do think we might struggle to keep at least one of them in the summer. And then the final question as well, it was one that we got a lot of, in our podcast questions this week in terms of like a trend, but it was around Michael Carrick's future, which is an interesting one around, should it be questioned and who would be in the market to replace him, really. So what's your thoughts, guys? Do you think that Carrick's future should be questioned at all? Who would like to take this one?
I think should's maybe not the right word, but I understand why people are, because we are seeing prevalent issues that are yet to find their resolution. And I think the more that you see something crop up, even if it is player mistakes, the question then kind of shifts from the players to the manager, and what can the manager do to sort this out? Is it a mentality problem, for example? Is it a setup issue? So I'm not one of those that are subscribing to like the Carrick out claims that seem to be like kind of still under the surface, but they're growing a little bit. But I can understand why people are questioning it. But the worst thing the Boro can do, I think, is bin off something that's building. And I don't know, football people aren't very patient, and I am one of those. But I like my patience is being tested. But I'm going to stick with Carrick for sure.
Yeah, I
Tom,
think
what
I'm
do
in
you
the
think?
same boat as well. I think it is something that's growing. I think you can hear it on BBC Tees every match that, and this wouldn't have been happening a couple of years ago, or even at the start of last season. I think everyone was giving Carrick credit for the playoff push, and getting us there. And I think now that we haven't achieved anything really for a season and a half, 2 seasons, I think that's the reason it's now starting to grow. I'm not necessarily saying Carrick out now. It's a thought that's starting to grow. Of, as Dana mentioned, these mistakes. Is it down to the players? Is it down to the manager? I think I've seen it a lot over the years of being a Boro fan. Of like one of the first signs of where we start to go through that process of replacing a manager is player mistakes, and it's players playing passes 5 yards behind each other and stuff like that. And it's such a far cry from when Carrick came in, because at that point everyone knew their job. Akpom spoke about it after the Blackpool game. When he gets the ball, he knows where everyone's going to be, and everyone knew where they had to be. At the moment, we are doing that, but it's in fits and starts, and it's nowhere near as consistent as it needs to be. I think coaching does come into it in some respect, and I know that Carrick is still a young head coach, and he's still got stuff to learn. What I don't understand is why we never look at this type of scenario and think, you know what, we'll bring in an experienced head on the coaching staff to help with that in-game management, because Carrick came from great pedigree at Man United. He was part of the coaching staff there. In terms of coaching players and making them better, I think he's got a track record of that now. I don't think that can be questioned. In terms of management, probably still a good track record, man management and stuff like that. In terms of in-game management, I think that's where we get let down at the moment. And, we were talking about it in our group chat yesterday, and Johnny, you made the point that maybe I'm not wanting a change in system or anything like that, but it needs to be slight tweaks, and that's exactly it. I don't ever want Boro to be one of those teams where neutrals would come away or opposition fans would come away and be like, oh yeah, they were entertaining to watch. I'm glad we won that 4-3, because ultimately there's no point at that point in football. You play to win. You don't play to be entertaining. So I would love it if Carrick learned this by himself, or we had that sort of experience on the bench where we could just be like, you know what, shore up a little bit here, and maybe we'll get like a 1-0 or a 2-0 out of this. We don't have to go into every game playing this, fast, fluid football which leaves holes. We could go into it a different route sometimes, which I think, when you look back at as a prime example, the meetings between Boro and Coventry, Mark Robbins does this, Carrick doesn't, and I think that's where, other than yesterday, which obviously was ruined by other factors, I think that's where Mark Robbins has got the better of Carrick quite a lot, in that he knows what to change and when.
Yeah, the experience does matter, doesn't it? It matters in football. In terms of like his future, though, I'd probably disagree with it should be questioned. I still think he has enough in the bank, to be honest. Everyone would like to see tweaks. We did make tweaks last year where we moved to a back three and we look really well balanced, and that simplifies Boro's game because, Boro in possession, they will move to a back three and they will try and play from that. So it's just a bit of less rotation. You have had a turnover in players. Maybe you look to tweak that to try and get us back to our level that we need to. Then you can move back to a back four again as you start to learn the rotations a little bit more. In terms of his future, though, I think be careful what you wish for. I would say, there's only one manager who's had a better winning ratio than him in the Championship, and it's Karanka. He's won 49.9% of his games or something like that. I think it was 50% before yesterday. We're not really used to it as Boro fans, to be honest. The average probably win percent rate for a Boro manager is about 35 to 40%. So we're well above that in terms of the level that we're at. We do create a lot of chances still. We do have those individual mistakes, but I think the football we've played some arms under Carrigan is probably one of the best I've seen. And in terms of are we regressing? Really, I don't think we are. I think a lot of it's contextual. In his first season, you have the best Championship centre forward playing for you in Cameron Archer coming to the club. Who's, in terms of striking ability, you have someone who's scoring 30 goals for the season in Chuba Akpom. You've got the best assister in the league in Ryan Giles. Quality can diminish at that point because you will lose a lot of quality and then have to reinvest it with less money. So then you have to really rely on recruitment, which we've not really had over the last couple of years. And then we've really started to develop it even further. We've actually changed our model a lot more. So you will see some sort of regression in certain areas, but the overarching quality that we have and the ability that we're playing at, I think is still relatively quite good. I would also like to see tweaks every now and again, but for the most part, I would say I'm really happy. And if you were to sack Carrick tomorrow, who do you bring in? It's probably the question. I would say who's in the market right now, and you can say, well, I'm going to bring
Jonathan
someone in.
Woodgate.
Woodgate is probably
let's be
it's
honest,
going to
it's
be
Woodgate.
It's Woodgate. It's probably one, isn't it? People were saying, well, Tony Mowbray's going to come back. I don't think Mowbray is going to return to management, I'll be honest, for another year or so. So you are waiting on that. But again, who's going to bring in? Who are you going to bring in, right? Who's going to have the same pulling power as Carrick as well? Because there is a lot of players that are here for him right now. So
Solskjaer.
No, right. I'm going to leave this podcast right now. So, well, speaking of big name players and pulling power, I'm going to go straight into trivia now at this point, because my question for this week is on the same levels. You can say it's a big name because there's that many letters in it, or you can say it's a big player because he's an iconic football player. But Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank was the manager of QPR for 11 months from the 2015 and 2016 season. However, what is higher, his win rate at QPR or his total amount scored for Boro? Bonus points for win percentage or goal number. So what's higher, the amount of goals he scored for Boro in total or his win percentage at QPR? So your timer for the trivia starts right now. Time is up. Time is up. So just to revisit the question, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank was manager of QPR for 11 months from the 2016 season. However, what was higher is win percentage at QPR or the amount of goals he scored at Middlesbrough, and that is in all competitions as well. So, who would like to give their answer first? Who's more eager?
I'll go.
Okay.
I'm not eager, but I'll go. And I feel like I might have this the wrong way around, but whatever. I've gone 34 goals for Boro and a 38% win rate at QPR. I think if I was to edit it now, I'd put 38 goals for Boro and a 34 win rate at QPR.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways.
Yeah, it's quite good. And then Tom, what are you going to go for?
Yeah, I've not guessed on any of the numbers. I've just said QPR win percentage. I'm not going for those bonus points.
Okay, well, He's a broker on here. So, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank scored 33 goals for Middlesbrough in all competitions.
Oh, so close.
However, his win percentage at QPR was 27%.
Oh,
So he did score more goals than wins.
I was a bit
Percentage
too
at
generous
QPR.
to Jimmy there. Was he in charge when Junior Hoylett fell down that camera hole that I always mention every time we play QPR? I think he was. That was the
Can't remember.
15-16 season, so he would have been, yeah. He was the manager in charge for that famous night where Junior Hoylett went missing temporarily. I absolutely love
Very,
that moment.
very niche that you can remember that. But anyway, Boro do travel to Loftus Road to play second bottom QPR. They've only had one win this season, and they drew against Sunderland at the weekend as well. Guys, going straight into predictions as we want to wrap things up. How are we feeling about this one, and what is our score prediction? Tom, would you like to go first?
Yeah, we're probably going to win it because we're inconsistent. And like I said earlier, it's going to give Carrick another chance in the post-match interview to say, no, our method's working. We're doing a lot of things right. So we'll probably win this 2-0.
It's 2-0. Dynamo, what are you going to go
Well,
for?
with the exception of the last meeting at Loftus Road in which we won 2-0, there's been a lot of draws between us and QPR. There's a 2-2, 1-1, 2-2. I'm gonna say that we'll edge it, and that it'll be I'm gonna say 2-0. I think it'll be 1-0 for a long time, and then we'll seal the win with a late second goal. And Latte Lath will score during this game.
Okay, then. So you've both went 2-0. I think QPR unfortunately will score from an XG of 0.09. And I think we'll draw 1-1. To be honest, I think we'll dominate the game and we'll give away a stupid goal and we'll end up drawing and everyone will be pissed off again. But guys, thank you very much for joining me as always. And to the listeners and the viewers, thank you so much for listening to us. Don't forget to share, like, and listen to the podcast as much as you want. That helps get found and chatted and all that kind of fun stuff. So thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. And yeah, but for right now, this has been the Boro Breakdown podcast. And that was all your Boro Match Day chatter in a pod. God, why do we always live to Coventry?